This episode is brought to you by Instant Impact. Instant Impact provides transformative talent solutions to small and mid-sized companies that are making between 30 and 500 hires each year. If your recruitment's giving you a headache and you don't know where to start, then give the team at Instant Impact a call or visit www.instant-impact.com for more information.
Hello and welcome to We Need to Talk About HR. I'm joined here today with James Zhang, who is a global HR professional with a career spanning various HR and talent roles across international markets. Now, James has an interesting educational background, having studied maths and also a very strong interest in the future of the workforce in relation to AI. So we are going to be getting into those topics today. Firstly, James, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
No problem at all. So I think maybe to kick us off, we'll start with a question around you and your career. So studying maths and then ending up in HR, how did that happen?
Well, it really begins from my A-levels. I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do for my professional career, so I thought, why don't I just study maths and see how it goes?
Wow,
and then,
you don't hear that very often.
Well, I did pretty well in my A-level maths, so I went to take on university maths as a challenge, I would say, and then. After on my third year of university, I remember I studied a really difficult course. It kind of puts me into the position like, do I really want to do maths for the rest of my life? Probably not. So I was trying different things, and then one of the company approached me for a recruiter role, actually. So I thought, hey, why don't I just try it out? I'm a people person, so I thought I'd give it a go.
Yes.
But later on, I more into organization development, talent management, and here I am, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. And look, I can also speak from experience of starting out in recruitment. It's not necessarily something that you plan, but certainly sets you up in good stead to understand how talent works in relation
Absolutely.
to HR. So I can definitely see that journey. Now tell me, do you think there is anything in relation to your math studies that has helped set you up for success in your HR career?
Yes, 100%. I mean, maths is foundation of logic. We all agree that, right?
Yes.
So with that kind of logic mindset, it's easier for me. I wouldn't say it's easier for me, but it kind of gives me a better platform for me to think more logically in terms of processes, about structure. Then when I looking at the moment I'm working on organization development, doing some restructuring, organization designing. Then when I looking at how do I restructure a company or how do I design a organization, then it gives me a better logical way of thinking, so I can look at it more holistically from top to bottom. How do I facilitate the company, help the company to kind of achieve their business goal, ultimately speaking. Yeah.
Nice. That makes sense. Thinking logically about things like workforce design, etc. And, we're certainly moving into more focus around AI at the moment. But in the past 5 years or so, in my career, there's been a really heavy focus on looking at analytics in terms of how you measure ROI in the world of HR. Is there much work that you do in the space of HR and analytics at the moment?
Absolutely. So, if you're looking at a performance kind of base from talent management aspect, then ultimately we need to think couple of stages. So in terms of employee life cycle, we've got the recruiting part. How do we hire people? There is a cost on that. You can use external recruitment, which recruitment firm, which job boards do we use? And then we're coming down to the qualifying, to measure their performance. So we ultimately any business like a hardworking employee, but if the employee is not productive, then that can be a completely different situation. So we're looking at performance measurements. So there's equations and data mining involved. We're looking at different performance matrix to support different departments, because various departments can be expecting different things, different business goals. And then we're looking at the retention. What does the employee really need from a company besides money, remuneration, right? And then we talk about how do we make sure the company overall is more efficient. So an interesting topic at the moment. I know we're going to go to AI topic shortly.
Yes, we are.
Looking at how we use AI to making the company more productive, make each individual more productive. That's the biggest topic at the moment.
Nice. We'll definitely touch on that, because I'm very interested in this, this thinking around implementing AI and the impact on productivity versus or what we expect versus the reality of what's been true so far. Mm-hmm. So really, really interested to pick your brains on that. We'll mosey on into that topic after we've talked a little bit more about your career, because I'm actually, you seem to have had a very successful HR career and moved up the ladder relatively quickly. Do you think that there are any particular reasons that got you there?
I think it comes down to kind of two key elements. One is being passionate. I went through different HR modules, talent management, organization development, even a little bit on learning development. I kind of start work on the people team, on the HR operation as a HR BP, even HR generalist. So I've tried different roles in a fairly condensed period of time within 2 or 3 organizations. Ultimately, the business leader, the key stakeholder, believes my passion. I would almost say, so that they try to give me opportunity, and I demonstrate, and then in return, I demonstrate my quality of work. Besides that, it's all about the keen to learn, I would say, because I set up my own business a couple of years ago, and I have quite a few different clients. They were asking various of HR services, from drafting policy to doing more set up their internal processes, approval processes, etc. So I'm quite fortunate, I have to say, but I do get the opportunity to kind of touch different HR area within, I would say, most of my clients are medium-sized company to sort of large-sized company. I haven't worked a lot with the publicly listed company yet, but I think within that remit, especially in the fintech, financial services, that area it's my route, kind of brings me the kind of consolidate my knowledge, I would say, yeah.
Nice. And you talk about working in different areas of HR, and I think something that's quite interesting, or would be interesting to our listeners, is how global your role is. And I know that comes with a certain level of complications, mm-hmm. but obviously also, potentially some benefits. So I wondered if you could maybe tell us a little bit about your experience working across multiple geographies. What are the easy parts? What are the hard parts? What do you enjoy?
I think the easy part, working on
none of it.
working with a global entity is always difficult.
Yeah.
From mentally and physically. Physically, if you have a team based in Texas, then we're looking at 9-10 hours difference. Then if you want to conduct a call, set up meeting with them, you kind of need to looking for a neutral, friendly time zone, right? Which is really hard.
Yes.
I mean, at the moment, I work with stakeholders in New Zealand as well, in Australia as well, which is 13-hour difference, literally on the other side of the world. That time frame, the time difference really makes it really difficult for any individual, really. But besides that, it's the culture barrier, I would say. I mean, if you're looking at how we work in this country, and then compare with, let's say, Southeast Asia or in the Latin region, it's completely different. The model is different, and then the way people think are slightly different as well. And then when you're looking at employee benefit, especially, then the benefits for each different country can be a minor difference, I would say. So. I mean, overall, I'm not an expert for the global HR. It's all down to the team I worked with on the regional basis. They kind of provides me solutions, ideas, and then we brainstorm together and come up with an ultimate solution. Yeah.
Nice. And so you have HR professionals on the ground in country, and they help with those nuances of
Precisely.
And that makes sense of international markets. I get it. So we talked a little bit about your career trajectory, and I know when we were talking previously, we spoke a little bit around the future of the graduate workforce, and with there being this whole new era of AI, and with there being less graduate roles already, plus the potential likelihood of further reduction to junior positions. I wonder what your take is on what the future of the graduate workforce might look like.
I mean, to some, it's a benefit. To some, it's a serious difficulty. Opportunity and the risk comes together. So, I mean, I have a 2-year-old daughter.
Yes.
I'm looking at what's her learning like, what's her learning curve is going to look like. It's not about she has to know the fundamentals. 1 + 1 = 2. Those fundamentals.
That would be very important.
Absolutely. But one of the key things I feel it's important for any youngsters, or anyone in any ages, would be know how to ask the right question to AI.
Yes.
So if someone, let's say, if you're a job seeker, you're a recent graduate, you're looking for a new job, the employer would really expect you to know how to use AI properly. For a senior person, which I've been a little bit, stereotypical here, they would expect the youngster to know the technology better. So for graduate, they've been the interview processes will be heavily AI involved, and you need to demonstrate how you can work any position within the organization with AI hand in hand.
Yes.
So that kind of key skills, I think for any youngster really need to pick it up.
Yeah. And I wonder, actually, I was sort of thinking way into the future then around, I suppose we all use computers in the workplace now, and we don't necessarily have tests on how we use computers coming in, right? Because it's assumed. So I actually wonder if, and I've got a young son as well, by the time we get to them going into the workforce, whether it's actually just assumed that you know and can work alongside AI, and then there's that sort of messy middle that we're entering at the moment.
I mean, my daughter the other day was asking me about, she managed to find my antique box, which I keep my memorable stuff in.
Oh, nice.
There was a floppy disk, and then she bring it out and ask me what this is. I kind of tell the way I explained to her was like, it's similar to USB.
Yeah.
And then she asked me what is USB. I was like, I dug myself a really deep hole. I don't know how to explain. And then I'll ask AI to explain to my daughter, which is rather silly. But I think, the technology, the generation is moving way too fast. If you comparison with like 70s, 80s or 90s, I mean, the movement is much slower, I would say, because the technology difference.
Yeah, I agree. I also wonder, whether the educational institutions will keep up with the fast pace of evolving skills within workforce, right? Because you mentioned
Absolutely.
You mentioned a few things there around, consistent learning and curiosity and knowing how to almost engage with and coach AI. And that's not really knowledge that you learn to apply in university. You know, you learn deep specific knowledge on topics, and you do learn how to apply knowledge, but it's in a very different way. And then on the flip side, how do organizations assess you for curiosity and assess you for your adaptability, etc.? I'm really interested in that at the moment. Is there anything that you have been looking at in terms of how you might assess in the future for those types of capabilities?
I mean, I've been doing it for because I recently hired a HR. I often ask a question around their thinking process.
Nice.
So it's more like McKinsey and that kind of consulting type of way. Like, how do you process a very simple thing? Like, how do you, what's your thought process if you want to go to Paris? Could you break it down for me? And then by explaining it, I can tell what's her logic, what's her process look like. And then you can really copy paste that to any type of work. And then another thing I would often ask is about how do you ask a question to AI? What kind of things? Why would you ask this question in this particular format? I mean, at the moment, everyone talk about writing a right prompt. That you know, with a good prompt and a bad prompt, it can make a huge difference with the outcome.
Yeah.
So same as HR. So when you're asking AI for assistance, any type of job you require help with, then how do you construct the message? How do you construct the question? That is the key topic at the moment. I mean, I'm looking at to set up training courses on AI for our company for all internal staff. I think, you know, if you not keep up with the speed, then unfortunately you're going to be behind.
Yes, I agree, and I think I also think that in some senses this the transformation that we're seeing via AI is happening so quickly that it's actually quite hard for HR leaders to put a bit of a stake in the ground in terms of, well, what skills do we enable people with and what do we train people on? Because prompting's really important, and knowing how to prompt is also a huge factor in that. But now AI has moved on to having prompt agents where you can input your gibberish into it so that the prompt agent can create the prompt, which you then put into the LLM that does the work for you. And so that skill has already been surpassed by AI. And so how do you start the process? And this is a question I ask myself on a regular basis of developing skills when the skills are changing so quickly. Any advice?
Wow, that's
it's a big one. If you find out,
that's a huge question. Let me call Elon Musk quickly.
Yeah.
I think I'm just kind of purely standing on my own perspective. I think keep up with the changes. I know like agentic AI can essentially do my job. I think within HR, if any youngster listeners who wants to join HR, then I think one of the key things very hard to get replaced is communication. So communication comes from understanding, and then that personality exchange with different stakeholders internally. I think that's one thing. I simply cannot conjure AI replacing that in the foreseeable future, at least for the next 5 to 10 years. I might be wrong, but I'm quite pessimistic about this.
Yeah, it's hard to predict, isn't it? But I think you're right that sort of EQ and communication piece is quite distinctly human. We may be eating our words in a few years' time, but yeah. I feel quite strongly about that too. And we talk about entering an organization, and you've talked about creating learning and development aligned too. What about the narrative within the organization, right? Because there are going to be employees that feel a certain level of anxiety around this this wave of transformation. And there are definitely differing perspectives on how to approach it with employees. What's your take? How do you address anxiety within your work at the moment?
Fortunately, our company is quite optimistic about the entire growth of AI.
That's great.
I think one of the anxiety. I don't think that this should be the solution from HR perspective. What we should do is helping our employee to be more hireable in the job market. So, ultimately, a successful company should grow with the employees, I would call it. So the learning development is a key factor, is how we train people to fit with the current world, the current AI, the growth of agentic AI, as we rightfully said. How do we bring everyone into that stage is the kind of key topic. So they wouldn't essentially, instead of think about how do we make sure how do we make them not feeling anxiety? Perhaps we can talk about how do we prevent that ever happened. I think that's the approach we are taking at the moment.
Yes, I like that. And I think when we were talking before, I started to outline an interesting thought pathway that I went down the other day that I'm interested to get your feedback on around what if we were, as far as we understand or as far as we know, because things change quickly, really quite open with what we think someone's career trajectory might be in a role when we are either hiring or when we're making, internal changes. For example, off cuff, you are currently the events coordinator for us here. However, we believe in the next 6 to 12 months time, most of your role will become automated or managed via an agent. And therefore we believe that your role will move to Y. And we know that the runway for that could be another 6 to 12. It's hard to predict, right? But what if we were like furiously transparent with what we think we know with team members? Is that exciting or is that like potentially detrimental? It's my potential, it's wild thinking, but
it could be a double-edged sword, to be
yeah.
honest. So I would say every single job, regardless you work in marketing, HR, finance, any type of role, there's a human part in there that AI cannot replace. It's all about, as an individual, I often meditate in the evening. So when I do meditation, I try to not think, but often I think about, what if my job getting replaced by AI, or by agentic AI? So ultimately, I think any people should really looking at where's the human part of your role that is irreplaceable, and then make that into your USP.
Yeah.
I think that on the flip side, just quickly share, sorry, a side note.
No, I love it.
I read something online the other day, like in Nordic or America, they were talking about giving people charging tax on corporates by using like AI, machine learning, that kind of things.
Interesting.
And then kind of subsidize to people to kind of help their livings. I don't know, government might doing something behind the curtain. I'm not overly sure, but I think from an individual perspective, you got to kind of work with the world and then try to find your kind of unique selling point within your speciality.
Yes, I agree. And your note there's very interesting because I think so often we forget that there are sustainability impacts to AI usage. So, I'm sure there is a wave coming of what does like ethical AI usage look like within organizations. We have a bit of a running joke, actually, in our office around like the environmental impact every time someone, sort of takes a load of meetings and asks something like Claude to provide insight, like just so you can get there quicker, which is a productivity gain.
Yeah.
Like, what impact are you actually having on the larger, wider environment? And I think when we start to get a bit clearer on that we may slow down. Who
Exactly.
knows? But we talked earlier about that productivity piece, and I'm interested to understand where you are on that journey of implementation versus seeing any productivity gains, and or how are you measuring that type of thing, or looking to measure that type of thing within your role?
I mean, this it's really hard to measure, to be honest, because I often break it down into set up a mind map and then kind of looking at in step-by-step process. So it's not easy to kind of you foresee everything what's going on in let's say 1 year or 2 years down the line. But what you can do is, like, for me, I try to become a little bit tunnel vision here, just to looking at the next step, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think so many organizations fall down the trap of trying to overcalculate a productivity gain from not even just AI, but any sort of use of technology, maybe way too early down the track of the project. And I've read quite a few studies on everybody, all organizations are introducing AI, but why isn't anyone seeing any of the productivity impact? I think that there is a big ramp up time to usage. And I also think that from my perspective, that in the world of talent anyway, my view is that you should be implementing certain levels of transformation and certain AI agents into your process to enable you to have a higher quality output. And productivity is often a byproduct of that piece that you've done. And so maybe we focus too much energy on that buzzword of productivity, when really we should be looking at how we gain quality and how we really refine our processes. And then
absolutely, I mean, right now the hot topic in HR would be HR organizational restructuring. But I personally believe restructuring is not the word we're looking for, is organization designing.
Yes.
So I mean, at the moment you can see there's a lot of role covered by AI. So imagine this is a piece of Lego. Okay, a piece of Lego. Are we really looking at taking half of the piece down and then rebuild it from a so-called foundation? Or we should have just take the entire foundation out and then to looking at from the very bottom line and then to rebuild it with AI involved. I mean, at the moment, the structure we're aiming to set up is, to encourage hire more graduates to our company, but instead having a manager to directly manage the graduate. We try to fit a kind of middle mental gap for AI to mentoring the graduate to bring them up. Because in the end of the day, if you talk about a very solid fundamental knowledge, AI kind of outbeats most of human, I would say. I might be wrong in certain
fields. It can be a great thinking partner.
Yeah, so a thinking partner, absolutely. I love that term. Thank you.
You can coin it.
So bring the graduates up, and so they can become an associate, become a much more senior position with AI by working with their own AI buddy, shall we say.
I'm fascinated by that. I haven't. I strategically within my own organization, we use AI to coach effectively. We have certain agents set up at performance review time and to provide feedback on one-to-ones and meetings and all of those things. But I think I haven't fundamentally thought about, and what next? Does that mean we still need as many managers? That's that like you say, it's almost a redesign, isn't it? And
Absolutely. I mean, another kind of area we're looking at, that would be the data protection. At the moment, a lot of SMEs where they literally chuck AI to a ChatGPT, Gemini, without deducting any sensitive or personal information. I'm not saying Gemini or Google or Microsoft or OpenAI would ever expose that. But what if? So creating a closed environment, setting up data protection, the policy and procedures will be another kind of key topic in most organizations, I would imagine. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. I think, you know, I work in the space of talent, and so it's a highly regulated environment. Yeah. And so a huge part of us making sure that we're set up for success is, you know, what are our guardrails? Mm-hmm. What is allowed, what's prohibited, what's not, and is everyone clear on that? And can we actually have an AI bot that can operate in plain language with our team members around these types of things as well? So that's fascinating. Well, I can't believe it, but we have almost run to time. So I'm just going to ask you one last question to wrap up the podcast today. And I think, you know, based on all of our conversations around your journey and around the new era of AI and what that means for the workforce, I'd be quite interested to get your take on a piece of advice that you might give a graduate today that's looking to enter the workforce.
Okay. I would say it's a message I delivered to all the recent graduate, or the new, a young professional. Do what you like. That's the one thing. It has, regardless, there is AI, there isn't AI. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. Okay, finding the job that you're passionate about, that's the key. But also grow with the world, grow with the society. Okay, I think that's the kind of two things I want to share, because in the end of the day, you got to have the passion, and then you need to know what you can offer and what world is offering at the moment. With two connect together, I think finding a job, time is the only matter, really.
Yeah, I love that. I think also no point having your head in the sand about these things. You hear so often around organizations that are quite steadfast in their thinking to not move with the times. And I think that we'll see the fallout of that quite quickly, soon enough. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, James. It was a pleasure talking to you today.
Likewise.
And really appreciate all of your insight. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.